Hello everybody, my name is Kara, and today I am here with my very first book chat. I recently saw Bookie Laura do a really interesting discussion video on book genres and how they can be really complicated and confusing. And I will link her video down below so that you guys can check it out. And it got me thinking about a topic I had been considering for a while now, and that is the way that we have turned age groups on books into genres. Now in this video I'm primarily going to be giving examples from middle grade, but a lot of the things I'm saying I think can apply to young adult literature as well. So in 2000, the New York Times published an article that talked about the new children's bestseller list, and I think their decision is still relevant today in the way that we talk about and group books. Now this change came right before the fourth Harry Potter book was supposed to be released, and it came in response to the fact that the Harry Potter series was pretty much dominating the bestseller list. You know, people were buying and reading the first 3 books in record numbers because they were preparing for the 4th book in this world-changing series, basically. Now, after that announcement, the article talks about the fact that some publishers had been advocating such a move for months, complaining that a cluster of popular children's books can keep deserving adult books off the lists. So that is an exact quote from the article, which I will also link down below in case you guys are interested. So I have a few problems with that quotation, and one of them is just right off the bat the implication that adult books are inherently better quality or more deserving. And I think any of us who have read any number at all of adult fiction know that there are variations in quality, just like any other age range. Number 2, this idea completely discounts the fact that adults read Harry Potter and similar books as well. Adults were buying them for children, that's true, but adults were also reading them themselves. One of the great things about the Harry Potter series and series with similar success rates is that they really span all age ranges. You know, they can be enjoyed for different reasons by different age groups, and this completely cuts that out of the picture. And finally, a really bothersome thing about that quotation for me is the fact that the way they talk about this children's bestseller list and the way it will keep children's books off the main bestseller list is this idea that children reading and buying books should not be considered as important. You know, like, children are still people. Young people are still people. If people are buying and reading a children's book, your job is to count that, regardless of how old that person is. And maybe if you're noticing problems with the statistics you're getting, maybe the problem is with how we measure a book's success and worth, and not with how we measure what a reader is. So we have this issue that now we have to count children's books separately because apparently that shouldn't be counted as an actual book. It should be a children's book. So that's already, I think, riddled with problems that I have kind of addressed a little bit. But then you get into this problem of what do we call a children's book or a middle grade book? How do we designate that? And there's been various ways that people have tried to do that. You know, sometimes publishers will designate a simplistic writing style as being an indicator of a middle grade book. And I will direct your attention to one of my personal favorite authors of all time, Frances Hardinge, who is technically marketed as a children's author. I'm just going to read you a brief quote from A Face Like Glass. "It draws you in. You twist your mind into new shapes. You start to understand Caverna, and you fall in love with her. Imagine the most beautiful woman in the world, but with tunnels as her long, tangled, snake-like hair. Her skin is dappled in trap-lantern gold and velvety black, like a tropical frog. Her eyes are cavern lagoons, bottomless and full of hunger. When she smiles, she has diamonds and sapphires for teeth, thousands of them, needle-thin. But that sounds like a monster." She is. Caverna is terrifying. This is love, not liking. You fear her, but she is all you can think about. That's from a character who is describing an underground city. Now to me, that doesn't sound simplistic at all. That kind of beautiful wordplay and evocative imagery is something that I think is not normally assigned to younger age ranges. But clearly, some children's books can have writing like that. You know, maybe the middle grade distinction is based on character age. So a counterexample for that would be The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. This book changed me as a person. But should we only allow people who are Liesl's age, you know, under 12s, to read this book? That doesn't make sense to me either. And finally, there's this idea that content should be the distinguishing feature of books for younger readers. The idea that kids or younger adults can't handle anything that's too upsetting or too important. And I would direct your attention to Diana Wynne Jones, and in this book she deals with sacrifice and an abusive home and love and what that means. So clearly none of these distinctions really stick, or if they do, you can come up with so many counterexamples that they are basically meaningless. I think one of the main problems with trying to nail down a perfect description that encompasses all of middle grade fiction is the fact that you reduce it to a much simpler genre. People think of it as just whimsical stories that are sweet and fluffy and don't have any substance because they're for children. And while there are books out there like that, and while those books definitely have value, that is not that all middle grade can be, just like any other genre. And I think when publishers do that, they make it easier for people to write off that entire range of books. I know a lot of people who say things like, oh, I don't like middle grade, or I never read children's books because they don't interest me. And I think part of that is because we market them like they're all the same thing. And they're not. There's just as much variation as there is within YA or adult books. On my channel, or even just in real life, when I review or recommend a book I love that is middle grade, I usually won't even mention that it is middle grade because it makes people less likely to read it, because they think somehow it's going to be less impressive or less of a quality novel. Let me just say that I understand why publishers do this sometimes. It's definitely easier to target marketing towards a specific demographic. It makes sense when you're trying to sell books or keep track of who is buying something. I can kind of understand why this might be useful. But the implications for doing this are that kids can't handle meaningful stories. Or alternatively, that nobody except a 12-year-old could ever be interested in a 12-year-old doing anything. This idea that adults, and a specific kind of adult, are the only people who have stories worth telling is an upsetting one, and if you'll let me be overdramatic for a moment, I think that's against the spirit of reading itself. You know, by ranking the worth or value of stories or readers, we're discouraging people from trying new things, and I don't think that's what books should be about. I guess my point here is that good storytelling has no age limit, and whether your book is for children or young adults or adults, or whether you write it with no particular age group in mind, I think you are held to the same standards of writing quality and character development and emotional impact on a reader. And if you're held to the same standards, then shouldn't you get the same recognition? Please let me know in the comments how you guys feel about age ranges on books. Do you feel like they're restricting or useful, or just what do you think of them? What are your thoughts on this topic? I clearly have a lot of strong feelings about it. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope it made some sense and that it was interesting to you. I still don't even know what I'm going to call this thing. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read, and maybe it'll be a middle grade. Bye.